I'm Carly. I'm a Nebraska girl, and I grew up outside. I was raised in the southeastern part of the state in a very outdoorsy and creative household. Dad often played his guitar on the porch, and Mom cut our hair in the pasture where the wind blew it away, to be used in bird nests. As girls, my sister and I collected frogs in the pockets of our sundresses and carried kittens around the barn in 5-gallon buckets. I'd pull a bale of hay out for the horses before school, and we had many wild neighbors: owls, foxes, raccoons, and deer. My family marked seasons by greeting new calves in the spring with Grandpa on the ranch, family camping trips to the Rocky Mountains in the summer, and harvest in the fall. Respect for nature and the lessons it teaches was instilled in me at a young age. I figured I'd grow up to be a veterinarian, as many animal lovers do. I liked science and was good at math, but I also had a creative mind and love for art. Could I bring them all together? While on a family trip to town, probably to celebrate a birthday, we wandered into a photography gallery on the way to dinner. I remember being drawn to a photo where I came eye to eye with the intense gaze of a burrowing owl. Dad looked around and said, "You could do something like this." After all, my parents had given me a red Kodak point-and-shoot camera that I went everywhere with. Taking pictures of animals? Years later, I realized that gallery belonged to Michael Forsberg, a respected local conservation photographer. It's funny how life has a way of opening doors. When I began thinking about college, like any 18-year-old, I looked for schools away from home. I landed in the big city of Lincoln at the University of Nebraska. College brought new friends, some tumultuous days in the front of the Husker student section, several formative adventures abroad, and an internship. It was with a conservation storytelling team called Platte Basin Time-Lapse, co-founded by Michael Forsberg, that same gallery I visited as a little girl. I began with the team right alongside my first classes as a freshman. As a student, I couldn't choose between the sciences or the arts, so I didn't decide. I pursued both, majoring in fisheries and wildlife biology and journalism. I spent my days hopping from ecophysiology to mass media law, reporting 101 to vertebrate zoology. My job at Platte Basin Time-Lapse allowed me to connect the two. As I learned how the Platte Basin watershed begins in the mountains of Colorado and Wyoming and threads its way across our state, I was developing a new way to see, studying videography and time-lapse while refining my eye behind the lens. Through my work, I witnessed the Great Crane Migration, explored the remote sandhills, and followed the Platte back into those same Rocky Mountains I scouted as a kid. After graduation, I moved west and worked on private land doing conservation for the University of Wyoming. An invitation from UNL to return for a master's degree brought me back home. I earned a Master of Applied Science and returned to Platte Basin Time-Lapse, this time as a full-time story producer. In this job, you won't often find me in the same spot 2 days in a row. My colleagues and I spend deep, intentional time in the field, telling in-depth stories about ecology, conservation, and the people that make their lives from the land. Some days I might be pulling on waders to film fish surveys or record state biologists catching geese. Other days may be spent at soil labs or capturing scenes of seeding native prairies. One of my favorite days ever was filming rangelands from horseback on a Wyoming ranch. I've been shaped by incredible mentors, and as my work continues, I strive to elevate the voices of those who care for the land, those who study it, and the wild creatures that move through it. From the Platte River Basin and the Great Plains to the Central Flyway and beyond. I feel so lucky to spend time among them all, making every day rewarding. And I'm so glad you are joining me on this journey.